to the latest episode of the Claus Corner. I first met my next guest at a Twilight Zone convention in Binghamton, New York, several months ago. He is an extremely talented musician with a passion for the best show ever created. And of course, I'm talking about the Twilight Zone. He has a very special, unique, and some might say dark relationship with the show. And he's here to talk all about that and much, much more. So without further ado, please welcome musician Rob Bull to the Claus Corner. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. This is a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, I met you at a Twilight Zone convention in Binghamton, New York. I think it was in either July or August. And Binghamton is where Rod Serling, everybody who's a Twilight Zone fan, and come on, face it, who is not a Twilight Zone fan, knows that's where he grew up there. And it was so great to meet. It was so great that a show that is over 50 years old still resonates with people today, and people still talk about it. And you were one of the first people I met, and it was great talking to you. You're a musician. You have such a passion for the show, and you showed me some songs that you wrote about the show. So I want to talk about that first. Before we get into that, how old were you when you first discovered the Twilight Zone?
That's a great question. Actually, somebody else at the convention asked me that, and strangely enough, I didn't know the answer. I would want to say I know when I really started getting into it, I was in my late teens. That's when I found out that the Twilight Zone isn't just a jump scare twist kind of show. Like the twists are incredible and stuff, but I've grown more like my favorite episodes are the hard-hitting, emotional, human episodes like Night of the Meek and Mr. Denton on Doomsday, and those really just deep shows. So I think, cliche and maybe artistic, but I think of the Twilight Zone has been a part of me for as long as I've been alive, and maybe even longer. And it grows stronger and stronger.
Yeah, no, same thing with me, because I'm not sure where you live. I live in Connecticut. So the New York station, which is WPIX channel 11, they used to always have the Twilight Zone on ever since I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. I always loved the show. And like you said, when I was younger, and even when I'm older, I love the twist endings. But as I became older, I realized like how great the writing was. And you mentioned a great point. You said like you like the human stories, the ones that get really personal. And there's a book I'm reading right now. I read the first edition. I'm reading the fourth edition. Mark Scott Decree. I'm going to have him on the show soon. He wrote probably the most in-depth book about it. It features every Twilight Zone, every synopsis, every intro, every outro, the making of, behind the scenes. And in the fourth edition, I'm rereading it again. And I didn't realize then, and I did realize it as I got older, that the one that wrote the most episodes dealing with human relationships was Rod Serling.
Yeah, he was a prolific, incredible writer. And I feel like he had that writer's curse where he didn't see that. Like sometimes with the stuff that I write, I like to listen to my songs almost in a vicarious kind of way, where I'm a very empathetic person, so I can kind of I get read situations and stuff. But, I think it stems from like when you grow up in a home where things aren't not necessarily normal, but when things are very tense, you it's something that grows, and you can you need to know if this situation is a good situation. Is this person happy, mad, or whatever? So like using that as a tool to like not really get in my head so much about my lyrics and stuff that I write, but getting into other people's head vicariously. And it's it's a shame we can't ask him, like, if if he ever would do that, because he was like very human. He understood humanity in a way that very people very few people do. And I don't know. He's just like incredible in that way.
Yeah. I think a
Oh,
lot of it had to do with he, like people say, write what you know. And
mhm.
the way he grew up, I mean, we'll talk about this. He was what, 21, 22 years old. He was in the military. While
Yeah,
he was in the military, his father died of a heart attack at
yeah,
54 years old. The army would not let him go to his own father's funeral, and that really messed with him. And but
yeah,
even he said that may probably create, being in World War II, being in the army, and all the things that happened to him probably helped him with his writing. And a lot of
mhm.
the stories, I mean, you probably know the names better than I do. I know the episodes, like one where you see in World War II and you see the Asians' point of view, the Japanese soldiers' point of view,
Oh yeah,
and if they changed bodies, something to that effect. So he always had empathy for everybody, and I like the fact that he was able to show like, he just because he's a different color, just because he's
yeah.
the other side, he is not the enemy. He's a human being as well. And he had a lot of episodes like that. And that was just one episode in particular. And then he always longed for the old days to pass. Perfect one would be Willoughby, where he
Yeah.
goes
Oh, I
back.
love that one. Yeah.
Yeah. But you mentioned a great point. I want to bring this up because doing my research on Rod Serling, because I had Ann Serling on the show, which is his daughter,
Yes. Yeah.
with along with another
That
great
was
author.
Mark.
Yeah, Mark DeWidziak.
I forgot his last name, but
DeWidziak.
yeah, yeah. That's it's hard to pronounce.
Well, I had to ask him before the show. Tell me how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You had to
we're not
practice
alone.
it.
But having those two on the show, I spoke with them for probably 3.5 hours. But you mentioned about, broken homes and things like that, and she was
Yeah.
telling me, and she might have mentioned it at the Twilight Zone convention because I know you met her there too. She was saying that like a lot of people, because she went to the schools later on, a lot of the fifth grade classes, and the kids would say, "Thank you very much to your father." Like I was sitting in front of the TV, I felt like, I didn't have a dad, but watching him all these
Yeah.
years, I grew up watching your dad, and I
Yeah.
felt like I had a father figure. So yeah, he had a huge impact on so many people. But you were saying that, about him being a writer. I think he had a lot of confidence. He didn't have arrogance. He had confidence, but he also
Yes.
didn't realize how important. And sometimes he was a little too humble. And I want to go back to an
Yes.
interview he did in 1959 with Mike Wallace. And I had to write it down so I don't forget it. Mike Wallace said to him when he was announcing the Twilight Zone, he goes, "Well, obviously you're not going to be working so hard on the Twilight Zone. No, you're going to be working so hard on the Twilight Zone that for the first time being and the foreseeable future, you have given up writing anything important for television." Right.
Yeah.
So
That's such a slap in the face.
I know, but Rod
Every time
Serling,
I hear that. Oh yeah, he handled it like a gentleman.
he did, and he goes, no. But you know what I like about it, and this is, I mean, we're gonna talk. That's why I love having somebody who has a passion for the show, because this is one of
Yeah.
my all-time favorite shows. And Mark Dawidziak brought up a perfect example. We were talking about the Twilight. There's only two black and white shows that you mentioned, and people know what they are: I Love Lucy and the Twilight Zone. And
Yeah.
I went to where I work and I tried it with the younger kids. I said, "Did you ever hear of the Honeymooners? What's that? Did you ever hear of I don't know, Gilligan's Island? No. Did you ever hear of I Love Lucy? Yeah. What about Rod Serling, the Twilight Zone?"
Yeah.
Those are
Yep.
the only two shows that people know from over 50 years ago, and it has to do
I
with
would
both
say
those
there
shows, the writing.
I would say there might be one more.
Which one?
Three Stooges.
Mm,
I
yes.
I know they weren't shows, they were shorts, but Three Stooges were incredible. Three Stooges, like, oh, I can go on all day about the Three Stooges.
Well, you know what? We have a lot of time on this show, so we will
Yeah,
get into
yeah,
that because I love the Three Stooges, and we'll get into
yeah,
right really quickly. We won't dwell on this right now, so I want to go back to the
yeah,
Twilight Zone.
yes,
What's
yes.
your favorite three of the Three Stooges?
Favorite three episodes?
No, favorite Three Stooges, because there was Moe,
Oh,
Larry,
okay.
Curly, Shemp,
I
Curly
mean,
Joe.
Curly, like the original Curly, I would say, which I know is cliche, but there's a reason why some things are cliche,
Yeah.
It's classic, and the tragedies and stuff like that befell upon like them too. Like
Yeah.
it's, it's so crazy how people that can bring such light into the world can, you know, fall victim to like such darkness and stuff. He had multiple strokes and then he eventually passed away. And I think they all kind of died of like strokes and stuff. I know Larry. Larry had a couple strokes.
Mhm.
Um, and Mo was the last to go.
He had probably the longest. Like, he was the oldest brother, and he lived into the 70s. I remember him on the Mike
Yeah.
Douglas show back in 76. I like watching old clips of that. And it's
Yeah,
funny
me too.
because, but I mean, if you know the story about Three Stooges, it started off with a fourth guy that brought them, because back then vaudeville was the big thing, just like with the Marx
Mhm.
Brothers. They would do their bits on vaudeville, and they had Shemp. Shemp and Mo were real brothers.
Yeah. Yep.
And what happened was Shemp, when they started doing the shorts, Shemp said, well, I want to do movies. So they started doing, the Abbott and Costello movies and
Yeah.
different things like that. So they brought in Mo and Shemp's younger brother, Curly, who was so depressed because he was overweight, and he also did not like shaving his head. And that really caused a huge drinking problem. And
Yeah.
that caused the strokes. And that's when he had a stroke. There's one episode, and I did see it. All four of them are in it. Only one time.
Yes.
Curly had the stroke. He's on a train, and Shemp
He's
walks by.
sleeping. Yep.
Yep, sleeping on a train.
Yeah.
So, and but yeah, there, it's unfortunately all the greats have so many dark
Yes.
histories. I mean, another example would be Abbott and Costello.
Yep.
There's so many hard. So I read the book called Lose on First, and his son died in the pool, and his wife always blamed him for not watching the son, and he was always depressed over
Yeah.
that. And just, and Bud Abbott was I mean, yeah, Bud Abbott was a big alcoholic, and they hated each other. It was a really, but those are some of the greats. You really, I want to get into, now that we're talking about this, talking about Twilight Zone, Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello, there's really no greatness anymore. I think people just settle for mediocrity.
Yeah.
What was considered great back then, now it's like, if you have a YouTube channel, oh, I'm a star. No, you're not really a star. You're just somebody that has like
Yeah.
a couple million viewers for some odd reason. Just because you're on TikTok doesn't mean you're a great actor.
Yes.
So
You may
unfortunately,
be entertaining, but that, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people can be, entertaining, which is, it's not a bad thing. Entertainment is a human thing, but to actually to transcend the way that, the greats that are still relevant today, that are, I mean, almost like 100 years ago, like, I mean, well, maybe close to 70, but yeah, even that, it's like, I mean, there's shows and stuff that came out 2 years ago that I
yeah,
can't remember. There's nothing. I wrote that down. That like nowadays there's even like beyond stories and stuff. It's like even like the music and stuff and movies and stuff. It's just not memorable. Like you watch something and it's kind of gone. I'm not saying everything, and I'm not trying to put anything down that people enjoy, because I know I have a particular taste and stuff.
yeah,
But for me, that it's like there's not many things that just
no.
hit and resonate like those old uh the classics.
No, exactly. And there's a reason why they're classics, because now everything is so homogenized, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
everybody looks the same, sounds the same. They're
Yeah.
so afraid to try something new. If they go and look back of how the classics got made, let's go to I Love Lucy for example. They did not want Desi Arnaz as, they would said, oh, nobody's ever going to believe that a Cuban is in love with a redhead. And the
Right.
only reason she took that show was because he was cheating on her left and right, that she wanted to keep an eye on him. And they figured, look, they do a show together, she keep, but that show became a classic. Another example, which is more recent, is Seinfeld. Seinfeld
Yeah.
did not do well for the first 3-4 years because it was on Tuesday nights against one of the biggest shows at the time, Home Improvement. What happened was 2 or 3 years later, it got switched to Thursday right after Cheers. Bam! Everybody started to realize the show and said, "Wow, this show is great."
Yeah.
And so, if they would never give a show a chance like that anymore. Now it's like, all right, sometimes shows will be canceled mid-episode. They'll go to a commercial
Yeah,
break.
right.
So, I've just seen this. We're gonna go to a news report now.
Yep.
That's how quick things get canceled. But I mean, even the
Yeah,
Twilight
and
Zone.
nobody cares.
And you know what? I'm glad I brought up I Love Lucy, because without even realizing it, there's a little connection. I'm not sure if you know about this, between Desi Arnaz and the Twilight Zone. Do you know about that?
Yes, didn't one of Rod Serling his shorts aired on the was it the first episode of the Twilight Zone?
It was before the first episode.
Okay, that was just before, right?
Yeah, it was called let's see, I have it right. Patterns.
Yes, it was the
Patterns.
one.
And what happened was
that the one about like the airlines?
yes.
Yeah.
And what happened was it was picked up by the let me see what it's called. I had it written down, the Playhouse. It was
Playhouse 90.
Desi Lou Playhouse, and we had Playhouse 90, and the ending they did not like at all. The executives came down, and Desi Arnaz is the one that said, "Give it a chance.
Yeah,
I really feel confident with this." They said, "All right, we'll give this one a chance," because they had it shelved, and they said, "We'll give this one a chance, but we do not want any more episodes with a dark ending like this."
yeah.
So what happened was that was the episode that had the most letters ever written about. And then CBS said, "Hey, how you doing, Rod?"
Yeah. Oh, hey. Yeah. Now that you got some money coming in from them, now you see it.
Yeah.
Which like, and it's it's crazy because back then, you can understand, like, kind of like there was like a TV and radio and stuff were very like controlled by obviously sponsors and stuff. Rod Serling talked a lot about that.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, but if you want to sell your product, you want people to be sucked in, and sometimes people, as weird as it sounds, they will get more enjoyment out of a show or something that doesn't have a good ending, more than because it seems it's more realistic, it's more human, and and I love how much he fought. Like, he wasn't too concerned about defending people, because he knew, I feel like he knew that if they gave whatever he was writing a chance, they would understand that it's not trying to be offensive, it's trying to be emotional and real, and it's trying to teach you either a lesson, like a it's either trying to teach you a lesson, or give you something just beautiful that you can take with you.
Yeah, well, exactly. He did not do anything for shock value alone. He did it because it was thought-provoking, it was emotional, it meant a lot to him. A lot of it was written from his own life, the episodes he wrote. And so when you look at it, it's very, very well written. It's very thought out. It's not like he just slapped it. And he wrote 80. It was a deal that he made with CBS, and he's like so far ahead of his time, because back then nobody was doing this. He got a deal where he was getting 50% of the show. He owned 50% of it. CBS got the other 50%. He said, "Well, I get to write 80% of the episodes." And then he brought on Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont, which I want to talk about later.
Which goes to show it wasn't about money.
No.
He could have just created the show and I'll be like, I'll write a couple episodes and you just have my name there.
Yeah. Well, he said his name was on there, and he wanted to ensure that it was a quality product. And that's why he hired two of the best writers. And that's why this show is still relevant today, because Richard Matheson, I've read not everything he's done, but a lot of his short stories. Of course, I've read, the books, the movies he's written, and people know Duel. They know What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
There's so many different things.
I Am Legend.
Yes. Which I don't understand this. The book is great. The movie with Will Smith was horrible, but there's a movie with Vincent Price called The Last Man on Earth, which is I Am Legend. That movie is just like the book. Exactly.
Really?
Like it. For some odd reason, Richard Matheson hates that movie. I don't know why, but if you watch that, because after I saw the movie, I read the book. I said I wanted to read. It's only a short story, and the movie follows it almost completely. It's great.
That's reminiscent to Stephen King not liking The Shining by Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. Well, the reason he didn't like The Shining was because
He
that,
changed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that book was basically about him. He was Jack Torrance because he was an
Yeah.
alcoholic at the time, and
Yeah.
he was drinking a case a night. And they said that like his family finally had an intervention. They said, and he didn't realize how much he was drinking until he went to the garbage can and he saw like the whole 3 garbage cans full. He goes, "Oh my God, this is how much you drank last week."
Yeah.
And he said he wrote 3 novels. I think one was Cujo and two other ones. He doesn't even remember writing.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I mean, I can't imagine writing anything, even a little mildly tipsy, but completely
Yeah.
blacked out.
Yeah. Like, yeah, yeah.
And
It's like I can perform, but
yeah,
writing is a completely different thing.
yeah. So Rod Serling did actually. I want to talk about that because you're talking about the sponsors, and then this is most people that are Twilight Zone fans know this, but for the people who aren't diehard fans, the reason that he left Desilu Playhouse or Playhouse 90 was because the sponsors were so bad. They were censoring everything he did, everything he said. And so that's why he went to sci-fi. And one of the things I love what he said, and it's so true. He said an alien could say things a Republican or Democrat can't.
Yeah. And that still rings true today.
Yes.
You know, politics are insane, and I honestly I try to stay as far away as I can from politics in my art because you know it's weird. I don't know if this rings true to you, but like to me, it's like politics change, like politics come and go, but art is forever. And like, you know, like if you get certain things that are like either songs or something that are very like based on the time, then they become dated.
Yes.
You know, like a lot of I think it worked like mainly for like rap songs where you know the people with like you hear rap songs and stuff with people talking about like Nextel phones and you know and stuff like that. But you know, but even politics, you know, I mean, I think there is a way to do it, like the way the psychedelic rock of the '60s and '70s did it, where it wasn't so much about um, actually, I guess it was anti-politics, which that's kind of like I think you know people can do what they want. You can do what you want in art, but for me, I like to keep heavy politics and stuff out of my like Rod Serling said, like not pinpointing exactly like oh this is a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean they're people, and that's why I love like the perfect
Yeah.
example was the Maple Street episode. That
Yes.
episode is
I actually live on Maple Street.
oh that's hilarious.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about your connection with the Twilight, your connection with the Twilight Zone
Yeah.
a lot deeper. We're gonna get into that in a while, but that's funny about Maple Street. Now, for people who don't know about the Maple Street episode, that show is more relevant now. It's where these aliens come down, which you don't know they came down at first, but these people they make them paranoid. They're turning everyone against neighbor against neighbor. Then at the end of the show, the aliens like, all right, we're done here. Let's go to the next Maple Street.
Yeah.
Another one. Oh, every town has a Maple Street. Yeah. They go. They're just messing with people. But that show.
And the next like, one.
And everybody is so paranoid. Everybody is so against their anti neighbor, and it's unfortunately what did that. Not the aliens didn't do that to us now. What did it to us now is social media.
Yes. Yep. Yes. I agree completely. I do understand that there are good things that social media has brought humanity, but I think the negative things are starting to outweigh the positive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess this is a form of so well, I don't know if Zoom is a social media thing, but you know, it's like there are some positive things that come from it. Like people can be connected, you can get news and stuff.
Yeah.
Wherever, whenever, which is great, but it's somehow it just came about algorithms and clicks and then tribal warfare, and it's to me it's like I it's like stuff from the Twilight Zone. You know, it's very
Yeah.
much like the obsolete man.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
you say
That's
the wrong thing or whatever, there's no redemption. Like
yep.
you just are that, which is very
You are
much
canceled.
yes, yep. Which Rod Serling was very anti-cancel culture.
Oh yeah.
There was in Anne Serling's book, there was a part where she said Playboy had either done an interview or bought an interview from this um, an African American guy who interviewed a Klan member, a Ku Klux Klan member, but the Klan member didn't know that it was an African American that was going to be interviewing him. So it turned, you know, I think it was in the 60s, so you can imagine how that turned out. It was a very vulgar and obscene and offensive interview,
Yeah.
and people kept writing in saying like, "Oh, why would you give this guy a platform? How dare you? Like, you should get rid of the interview, basically." And she said that her father, Rod Serling, wrote into Playboy and basically said, um, "No, they shouldn't. You, you shouldn't push these people into the dark," basically is what you said. Like these people should be able to come out and say what they think, so
Yes.
they can be challenged, and then maybe they can grow. Like there's no opportunity for that anymore. People can't grow. What you are is what you are. I mean, I don't believe that, but that's just the way society is heading,
Yeah. No.
you
Exactly.
know.
And I agree with that too, because I think that everybody, because you know what? Here's what gets me mad. Everybody loves free speech until it's something they don't want to hear. Then it's like, oh, they
Yeah,
should be saying that. It's like, no, they have a right. And I think
yeah.
it's good that they talk like that because that just
Hmm.
exposes their ignorance.
and
And it's going to show them like
and
these people are just
everybody,
stupid. And then they're going to say, I actually supported this in the past. I didn't realize how dumb this is. And
yes,
it's going to let them
exactly.
know. So if you just push everything into the dark, and just act like it doesn't exist, it's not going to go away. It's
Yeah,
going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. So if
yeah.
you actually expose it, and then more people say, the problem now with social media is you'd have maybe one guy that thought like that, and he'd be afraid to say something. I don't want people to think I'm this or that. But now they'll go on social media and they'll find like 100, 500 people that look, sound, and act and think just like him, and then that gives them more power. That's where, unfortunately, social media comes in, where
It's
people like that sort of
tribal.
yes, the tribal. That's the perfect
It's
word.
tribal warfare. It's we are through like insane technological advancement. We are regressing as a society back to caves. Basically, we might as well, you know, be like, oh, this person said this or they're wearing that, and it's
Yeah.
angry mobs. It's like Frankenstein.
Yes.
Like it's, you know, and to me it's really, it's terrifying, and it's really, it's heartbreaking, you
No.
know, that nobody is allowed to grow, you know, and and you have the wrong opinion or whatever, which is, you know, an oxymoron,
Yeah.
you know, statement anyways. But it's like, you know, there's nobody's going to agree on everything.
No.
And
Exactly.
most people used to believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but we, you know, it's not like, oh, you still believe that, huh? Because you used to,
Yeah.
or, you know, or whatever. It's like differing opinions. You know, people that live out in the city have a very different opinion to the people that live out in a rural country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's two different worlds. You know, we need to, there's not enough empathy,
Yeah.
I think.
There's not enough
There's,
empathy or understanding, and
yeah,
it's sort of the same thing. And if people actually just put aside their differences and just started talking, and they'd realize they have a lot more in common than they do differences. And
yeah,
instead of just everybody just talks about the differences, why should, and I think, you know what does that also, besides social media, the media in particular likes that, likes the divisiveness, because that gets more ratings, that gets bigger, more
yeah.
readership. So they love people being divided because it gives the media more power. They can't stand when, like,
They get the
if,
clicks.
yeah, exactly, the
They
clickbait.
get the
Now,
clicks and the views and the minutes. How long have they been watching? When did they stop watching? Okay, we need to drag it on so they watch longer.
Exactly.
it's disgusting,
Yeah.
really. When you think about it, it's just it's manipulation because these people probably don't really care that much about the content that they're putting out. They're just caring about the bottom line.
Yeah, no, exactly. And unfortunately,
Sponsors.
that's what it's all about. It's all about the money. They could care less about the people and what happens to them. But it's just speaking of social media, because you said that it's good for some things. Actually, I want to talk about let's talk about this first. With social media, the one good thing for me is that something it's good for promotion.
Yes.
I really don't even care about having an opinion anymore because I don't want something that I do right now to be 20 years from now I lose my job. It's something that's which is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
gotten to this point where it's that bad.
That's
But
possible.
yeah, which is
Better
sad
watch
because
yourself.
you made a great comment saying, like we can click on social media and I can find out what's going on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
We have the best technology and we are the dumbest we've ever been because
Yes.
instead of actually using these tools to educate ourselves, it's more about like, oh, let's see this, let's see them. And they're like making stupid
Yeah.
TikTok videos, which is I guess it's fun
Hmm.
for some people. To me, it's not, but it's just that it's actually dumbing
Which
down the
is
nation.
fine.
No,
Which is like it's
yeah,
fine, but that's
it's dumbing down the nation though.
yes. We are losing something. We're losing. For me, like it's like I see it, and it's empty pleasure. It's like empty entertainment. There's really, and which is fine. Like
Yeah,
I play video games, so it's like one of those things. When I beat a video game, it's awesome for a second, and then I realized I have nothing physical from this now, and it's I just can say I beat the game. So it's like there's a hollowness to,
yeah,
there's a hollowness to some things, but I feel like there's too much hollow pleasure now. There's
yeah.
not a like people aren't gaining um
Knowledge.
uh knowledge or like or sustenance for their spirit,
Exactly.
like growing and just getting it authentic, soul fulfilling pleasure.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you love video games, and I have different things I like to do, but that's not our life. You don't sit there and
Mm-hmm.
play video games. Some people will say it's. They said there was somebody on a talk show I was watching. They said the cell phone has the same addictive qualities as crack. Like
Yeah.
if you lose your cell phone, oh yeah. And I've actually seen my friend. This is a couple years ago. My friend was shaking because his phone was broken, and it was Memorial Day weekend. He goes, "We gotta get it fixed." I'm like, "Don't worry about it. No, no, we gotta go. We gotta go." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Calm down." I mean, this is it's has an addictive quality to it where people just cannot. And I said, "I'm 54 years old. I lived without a phone most of my life. I
Yeah.
survived to tell the tale. I'm doing great. I actually loved it because the days of rotary phones with before answer machines, if I wasn't home, nobody can get in touch with me. And
Right.
now it's like oh, Rich, I know, like,
Or
I know
even
you're
like,
there, Rich. I saw you read my message. Where are you? And everybody tracks you. Everybody knows what you're doing.
yeah. Or,
I personally don't like it, but I do love it for is promoting myself. All the different things
yes.
I've done. As I told you, this is what I'm doing now, but I also did stand-up comedy, motivational speaking. I wrote a book.
That's
I did
awesome,
I
man.
was in a band. And speaking of bands,
Oh,
let's
nice.
talk. Yeah, I was the lead singer of a band in the 80s. I loved it. But you, as I mentioned in the intro, are a musician. So I want to talk about that because that's how I first started talking to you about what you do. So tell
Yeah.
me, what kind of music do you do and what do you write about?
Okay. So I don't like to hold myself to just one particular genre. Um, I would say I do a mixture of either a mixture or just flat out um, like rock and roll, um, psychedelic rock, um, kind of like synth, dark synth pop, hip hop, and rap, and and crooning. I like the old the old style crooning like Frank Sinatra or yeah, Dean Martin,
Yeah.
or even like the people that you don't really associate with crooners, but they really actually were like Jim Morrison. He's a big inspiration of mine. He had a lot of bad views and opinions and stuff but it's one of those things. I'm surprised he hasn't been canceled yet,
No, I know.
because I actually just read a biography on him, and yeah, he had some bad views. Him and Rod Serling would not get along. And like it really affected me, because like it was stuff I never knew, and he was always been one of my biggest heroes.
Yeah.
But but then I also learned that just because he thought the way that he did doesn't mean I think that way, or he was racist and just a womanizer and stuff, which can come with being a musician, which is I try not to um, be that way, but
Yeah.
yeah, but
Unfortunately, he was also part of that time period too, which is not an excuse because not everybody, like obviously Rod Serling grew up even before Rod Serling was
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
But unfortunately, he was part of that time. So, like, if he was alive now, he would have a completely different view because who you are at
yeah,
20 is not who you
yeah,
are at 40 years old. Who you are at 40 is not who you are at 50. So you do, as you mentioned,
yeah,
you grow and you become more educated and you become a different person. So maybe
yeah,
that's the case. I mean, unfortunately, I do know a lot of stories, some of the things that he said in the past. But also, I think Jim Morrison,
yeah,
he
right.
was about shock value. I think he just liked to say things
Yes,
to shock people.
yes, which I really love, and I like I like his uh stage theatrics. That is a very like that inspires me a lot. The way that he would be able to, like, when he was uh doing good, he could just completely hold a crowd, thousands of people right at it, at his fingertips with the things that he's done. So I did write some stuff down in preparation for that question, for like about my um music and stuff. Oh yeah, I also do like blues, which is makes sense. A lot of my music is definitely, it's not, I wouldn't say it's for people that are looking for necessarily, happy type regular songs. Maybe not happy, but a lot of my stuff is pretty dark. I wouldn't say um, it's not like black metal dark.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my rap stuff when I was younger was pretty dark, but I was working through a lot of things um, that actually that was a really good outlet, and I didn't turn out to be as bad as like a lot of people in my family that didn't have any kind of outlet turned out to be, because they couldn't um, release the anger and frustration and kind of give something back to the world that gave them that darkness and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
And
well, you know what though? I sort of like I want to stop you right there because sometimes I think when you write about things like that, it may sound dark in hindsight, but when
yeah,
you're writing it, it's an outlet for you, but also other people going through that, you're going to be helping them say, wow, I'm not alone. There's other people that feel like I do. And
yeah,
you're probably helping people without even realizing it. And
yeah,
you mentioned movies that end on dark endings. I want to talk about one in particular. This was the funniest thing that ever happened. I went to go see The Mist, Stephen King.
oh yeah,
So I
that
was
ending.
walking into the theater. No, I love the ending.
Spoilers.
Yeah, well, I think
Oh
well,
yeah, yeah. It's a great ending, but it's one of those endings where if people want a happy ending, that you're gonna hate it. But
well,
it is a great ending.
even in the book, as I read the story in the book, there he's just driving through the mist and it just never ends. And
Yeah.
Stephen King even said, he goes, that ending's even dark for me. And he was laughing. But so when I'm walking into the theater, I hear people like, fuck this. I can't believe this. Fuck. I said, what is going on? And people
that's
were literally, they were
that's
really
hilarious.
mad. They were swearing. So I watched and I said, I love this ending. This is
But
because it's so realistic and it's just
that got a reaction out of it,
yes,
you know?
exactly. And so when I was doing comedy, I used to always say, because I have cerebral palsy, and a lot of my comedy was about my handicap. And people said,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't talk about that." I said, I can talk
Like
about whatever I
what?
want.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
exactly. I love talking about things that people really can't handle. I mean, not everybody, but like people, like if you listen to the radio and stuff nowadays, it's, I don't know, I kind of, my stuff is very, I would say, primal. It comes from like, who's another inspiration of mine, H.P. Lovecraft, which is
Yes.
funny because I've only recently really got into him, but my music and stuff and everything I've been in, like, um, that I've been into, like horror and like madness, like people just going insane, like like that. It fascinates me, you know. And it's actually one of my fears that one day I might like suffer that fate, but not, you know. It's more of like, I guess, an irrational fear, but
Yeah.
you know, it's something so horrifying, you know, like, you know. And so I love talking about those things. My songs, I've actually realized more recently, they're, most of the songs that I've written recently sound like warnings, like warnings of like what the darkness can do to you. Like there's something that beckons me towards the flames and darkness, although I feel this is inherent in most humans, you know. But we all have a fascination in that. I just so happen to dedicate my life to the ideas of horror and madness, and not just fictional, but also like, you know, the horrors that flesh and blood people are capable of, because those are the really terrifying ones. Even if it's not a straight, you know, strictly murder, like emotional abuse and sexual abuse, or, you know, these are things that are a lot more prevalent in our society than, you know, anyone would like to admit, you know. And it's not just because of like denial, it's just so heinous that it's, you know, that you kind of can't think about it all the time. And I mean, even I don't, but like, you know, because my, which I think this was a big inspiration. And actually, I know it has been for my music. My mother, when she was, I think, 10 years old. Yes. When she was 10 years old, there was a guy who lived in her neighborhood in Troy. My mother grew up very poor, um, in her neighborhood. My grandma was 13 when she got married, and she had 8 kids, and I think my grandfather was a horrible drunk, very abusive, and would molest the kids. And
Oh, wait, let's stop right there for a second. You said your grandmother was married at age 13.
yes, she was married at 13.
Who allowed that to happen?
It's crazy, but it's I mean, her parents, and I think it was like things were very different.
Yeah.
And I want to say she's 70, so I don't know, maybe if it was
Wow.
the 40s or 50s or something, you know, like even then it was, yeah.
How
And
old was your grandfather?
you know, honestly, it's, some of these things are actually, like, even for me, very hard
Uh-huh.
to um to think about. So that's actually,
Okay.
I don't, but I do, I'm pretty sure he was like 20 or so, you know. He was
Wow.
older, yeah.
That's just, I'm
And
surprised that was even allowed. I'm surprised that
yeah,
just,
yeah,
it sounds like the Elvis story. Because I think Priscilla was
yeah.
like 14 or 15. And when
You know,
basically they, for Elvis, the parents said, go right ahead, take her.
yeah, like things were very different, like not that long ago,
Yeah.
you know.
No.
And like I'm really happy for like the way laws and stuff have, you know, changed and stuff. But like society definitely needs help, because there's some things that just haven't changed,
Yeah.
you know, especially like like that kind of stuff, like the cycle of sexual abuse,
Yeah.
you know. So going back to that, my mom, yeah, she was 10, and there was this guy and that lived in their neighborhood in Troy, Now, and it's crazy, like the stories that she tells me, like it sounds like just like like if the devil was real, like he was like in their neighborhood or in Troy and stuff, because there was a guy there that ran a carnival that was molesting kids, and everybody was just being, like nobody had any kind of uh nobody watched their kids and stuff, and and so that stuff was just crazy uh prevalent, and I really can't blame my grandmother, because she was thrown into um her life as it was,
Mhm.
and I think by that time she might have been, I mean, who knows, I think my mom is the second or the third youngest out of 8 kids.
Wow.
um so it's one of those things where it's like I feel really bad for not knowing a lot about like the specifics of that family, like like the ages and stuff. But it's like I know I guess the things that, like, once I heard everything else, those kind of things didn't even click,
Yeah.
because like my mother, like she was and is uh, a great and beautiful human being. Like you would not know like the things that have happened to her if you just met her one time, and she's kind of insecure about that, because you wouldn't think that I came from her. She's a very small um, lady, and she's almost obsessive and compulsive about her looks, which I think stems from the things that happened to her as a child. She doesn't, she's terrified about looking old and stuff,
Mhm.
so she's like, she works out a lot, and she's the complete opposite of kind of what I've turned out to be, but I'm trying to turn things around. But yeah, she's a beautiful person. And so when she was 10 years old, she was abducted, and held captive, and I think she lived in a cellar or basement, with there was like there was a mattress, I think a bucket to go bathroom in, and
My
like
God.
a TV. And so from 10 to 16 years old, she was there.
Wait a minute. Let's stop right there for a second. So for six years she was missing. Did your grandparents
My,
think she was dead?
no, my grandmother did know where she was, which is very controversial. Obviously, that sounds,
Oh,
but he was a somewhat powerful person or whatever. He was very intimidating, and he threatened basically to kill my whole family if anything ever got out or whatever. And with like the way, I'm pretty sure my grandma has and had an arrested, development when you go through trauma and stuff so young. You kind of stay at that age mentally. So I think she was a scared mother, and didn't necess- didn't necessarily know what to do. And I know that that's not um maybe not a good excuse, but that's just the fact of what it was.
was it
you
a
know
family friend?
no, it was just a guy that lived uh somewhere in the town of Troy.
And
His
how,
uh
oh,
his
go ahead.
name was I think it was Joe Gato. We're not sure if he actually might be dead now, but we're not sure.
Wow.
Um I mean, there's a lot of things that I would like to do to him,
Yeah, I don't blame
but
you. I just
you
can't. I
know,
mean, what'd your grandfather do? He must have been pissed off.
no, he didn't.
Really?
I
I,
don't think he cared. He was and is a just degenerate drunk.
uh,
Like I'm pretty sure my mom says he lives on a mattress right now, and he's just drinking every day to stay alive and shit.
Uh,
Like he weighs like maybe 90 pounds, 80, 90 pounds. And you know, honestly, I don't like there's it might sound heartless, but you know, there's just people I don't care about in my family because, you know, that's just the way it is. I have more sympathy for my grandma than I do my grandfather,
yeah.
and I really don't know him. I never really I think I've met him a couple times and stuff, but it's funny because my grandma always said that he was he reminded her exactly of Jack Torrance from the Shining movie.
Oh my
She
God.
said she said he used to look like uh, Jack Nicholson even, and he was great. He would just beat her and uh, molest his kids
Oh my
and
God.
probably other kids so like I don't think I'm not even sure if he was around at that time. Actually, I think my grandma might have been on her own.
So what happened? Did he actually abduct her and keep her there, or did she go in there
I think
thinking
she
like,
might have been lured there.
wow?
I,
So
th-
she was
I
there for 6 years in a basement.
yes, in the basement, and it's crazy because he allowed her to go to school and stuff like that. So she would go to school and come back, and he actually had kids. He had I think two boys that lived with him, and she said that he told them to call him Tad, so she wouldn't know that that was their dad, but she caught on eventually. He was very smart.
So was she allowed to play with them, or was she just in the basement?
Um, I think she tried to, but they were just they were odd too. They were probably being molested as well. So, yeah, she was pretty much she was locked in a basement, and uh he wouldn't. I'm not we can keep it family friendly. I'm not going to go too deep into stuff, but we can just say that he was it was weird. He wanted to keep her uh, clean or whatever, as he said. So he never penetrated her. He just did other things. And so this is going on from 10 to 16. She's going to the bathroom in a bucket, and and she's going to school and stuff, and she's being made fun of and picked on,
Why? I mean, at that
bullied.
point, I know why couldn't she tell a teacher? It's like, I can't go home. This happened to me, and then they call the.
She was convinced that she loved her mom so much that she didn't want her mom to get killed.
Wow, I mean, it's amazing that this
I
actually
know,
could
yeah,
happen. I thought that she was held
yeah.
captive and was missing, but I mean, when it's hard to imagine that something like this could even happen.
I know. Yeah, and that's like it's part of the reason why I don't know. I hold so strong to my values and stories and like how effective storytelling can be because when when we got back from the Twilight Zone, the Rod Serling convention, I asked my mom and I was like somebody asked me there like after I made my testimony and stuff, which I didn't mention anything that had happened to my mom because I wasn't trying to I wasn't trying to make it all about me or and stuff like that. But somebody had mentioned or asked me like how did like a person that is like so young, I guess she was older, but I don't feel that young. I'm 30, but I'm sure youth is fading, but she's like she was just curious about how like a person like could like younger like that got into it so deeply. And just as you asked earlier, I was like, I'm like I don't really know. I just started watching it uh one day because I was always drawn to like dark and scary things, and I'd always that was like like the Twilight Zone was yeah, it had the scary episodes and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
one of the oldest scary things that still looks good
Yeah.
and still is effective. So yeah, I started watching it like that, and then I found uh, the other episodes and stuff. And then the older I got more into it. So I told her that, and then so right when we came back, I went to me and my wife Ashley went to my mom's house because she was watching our dog Rhett, and I had asked her, I was like, was there anybody that like watched the Twilight Zone or something when I was you know younger or whatever? She's like, yeah, I used to watch it all the time when you were younger. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, that's cool. That makes sense. And she's like, yeah. And I actually remember, um, she said, she had a, a little broken down TV in the room, and there would always be reruns of the Twilight Zone and Star Trek. And she said those shows gave her an escape, and that when she said that, especially about the Twilight Zone, it hit me like a freight train because I didn't. It's one of those things. I was like, wow, I owe so much more to Rod Serling than I ever thought I could. You
Yeah.
know,
Now it's I have a question for you. Was she the only kid that was down in the basement? Did he have others? What made your mother so special that he kidnapped and held her captive and no other kids?
you know, I don't know. I think I mean she has such a light in her. Like she's the life of, I don't know, like she walks into a room and everybody's looking at her. She has like she radiates um friendliness and love,
Yeah.
and I think and people, you know sick people may, maybe saw that, that guy, and or I don't know if it was just opportunistic, or
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I try not to ask her too much,
Yeah.
because like she'll bring it up and stuff, like I've noticed, like she brings up a lot, she still has obviously like depression and insomnia and stuff, and she says it's hard for her to sleep because she'll fall asleep and she'll dream that she's back in that room,
Yeah.
and then she goes into like depression states where she'll become reclusive, and then she's like she feels like she's always in that room, and so I think that's hearing those things, like especially when I was younger, I didn't know how to um, process that,
Yeah.
like how this lady standing in front of me that gave birth to me, like went through that, survived it. Like a lot of people don't survive that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
he was actually eventually arrested when she was 16 because he went to go get he would take uh pictures of her. She said there's probably thousands of Polaroid pictures, but he went to go get some developed, and the police, the people reported it, and they arrested him.
Wow.
And then she got out at 16, like, so you're kind of heading towards adulthood,
Yeah.
and and she goes to school, and they call her a whore, a blowjob queen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like horrible things, and all she wanted, like, was a friend,
Yeah.
like and she said, like, she would dress very nice. She would dress like uh very beautiful for like the 80s and stuff. So like everybody was jealous. all the girls were jealous because she was in that situation that she was gonna try to have sex with all their boyfriends, and you know, completely misunderstanding, and like just like horrible judgment. And I don't know if it's upbringing or whatever, but if my kid ever made it in front of somebody that went through something like that, like, I mean, you know, having being a kid that grew up hearing these things, like she she was horrible, like so degraded that she just dropped out of school and never went back in the eighth grade.
See, it's just, where did she grow up? Where did this happen?
Troy, New York. It's about
Wow.
20 minutes south of Albany,
I'm just
or
so
north.
surprised. Now, was she sent back to your grandmother? Did she
It's a,
live the rest of her life with her, or was she sent to an
no,
orphanage
no, no.
or
She went
foster home?
and she moved in with a cocaine deal,
Oh my God.
and she started selling cocaine and carrying guns,
Wow.
and 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 that guy would cheat on her and, and beat her and stuff. She got him back one time though. She told me there was one time she came up. She was wearing stiletto high heels, I think 16 or 17, and she ran up and hit him in the back of the legs with a 2x4, and then ran.
All right.
You know, so, yeah. So like she went from that situation immediately into like Scarface, like bad, you know, like, which I can, you know, she obviously she didn't have a good upbringing, so it's like she didn't, you know, like this is a guy, he's got a lot of money, they're taking trips, you know, and stuff like that, and so she got addicted to cocaine for a little while, but not for too long.
Good.
Like, you know, like she was a very good mother. You know, everybody has their problems. Like there is like there was a couple times I think when I was younger that she was addicted to crack, but it was never like really prolonged periods, and it wasn't that often.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make it excuses for her or anything, but you know, I think it's like the situation that she was in, and the people, or the, you know, the person that she was with, um, just, which was my stepdad, and he had an awful upbringing too. I don't think he was molested or anything, but his father was very degrading to him, and like he was the black sheep of the family, and so he kind of projected that role onto me
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So I had a very like hot cold upbringing where my mother was always so loving and um, embracing, and you know, stuff like that. But my stepfather was very cold towards me, and you know, and I don't want to get into too much, you know, but yeah. So her story, which you know, honestly, I would love to make into a book or something, because it's it is like it is a great story. I mean, I'm not saying the things that happen in them are great, but it is a gripping human story, you
Yeah.
know, and even as it's weird, even as dark as I got, like with my writing and stuff, when I was younger, like early teens and stuff, I would write a lot about sexual abuse, and actually being in that position. I would I called myself rapist Rob, and a lot of people didn't understand it, but my mom did,
Mm-hmm.
in a weird way. She's like, no, he's troubled, and you know, but and he's telling the stories of of his family, you know, and maybe not in the most healthy of ways, you know, but and like so like like that stuff was very 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 intense, you know. Hearing that stuff, it's like growing up, like I couldn't imagine, you know, and I'm not sitting here being like, oh, hearing it was so terrible, you know. It's like I know that, you know, I couldn't imagine. I was lucky that I was never sexually abused as a kid or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, like but I think it's because my mom was very adamant that she was not going to let that happen. She was not going to be, she she has this thing that I called uh fuck it, or no, fuck that, where the things that happen to her, she is not going to, she's not going to just lay down and and repeat the same mistakes that had happened to her, you know, like the neglect and the just letting her kids run the streets, and you know, and not really being too concerned, and being too trusting of people and stuff, you know, like she, which unfortunately a lot of people in my family, especially on my mom's side, don't have that.
Yeah.
Like it is a repeating cycle that the kids are molested, and then they end up molesting other, and then they're in prison, and then those kids are going to grow up and probably do the same thing.
Yeah. It's that, you know what I love about this story is that she could have easily played the victim. I love the fact that she's so
Yeah,
strong and she's actually using it to grow and not say, well, this is why I'm an alcoholic. This is why I'm a crack addict. She goes, no,
yeah.
I refuse to let that happen to me.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
always,
that's
I always,
nasty.
I always hate when people say that when they use excuse. So whenever somebody complains about something, I said, because my brother's wife is dying of pancreatic cancer,
Oh
and
man,
no,
I'm
but
sorry to hear
whenever,
that.
yeah, she's, I feel really bad too. But whenever I hear somebody complaining, I said, I bet you my brother's wife wishes she had your problem. Oh, you don't understand. I said, I do understand. Your problem is nothing. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
It's like
No,
listening
no,
to stories like
exactly.
this. It's like, you know, everybody has their own problems, but if, luckily for me, I'm able to step back when I'm feeling bad, take almost like step and not a body experience. Look at myself. I'm like, Rich, come on, life is pretty damn good. And I'm able to say that
Yeah.
to myself all the time. And for the most part, I am like 99.9% like I am right now. I love my life. I love the way it's been going. I have no complaints about anything. I've done pretty much everything I wanted to do. So it's just that I love the fact that your mother is so strong and she used that to become even stronger.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. I would ask her if she'd like to come on sometime if you ever wanted to talk to her.
I
Like,
would.
like, and that's one thing too. She doesn't want to hide and just kind of let these things fester and go on. Like she wants people to, like she wants people to hear the stories, you know, like of not necessarily just like a pity me kind of thing, but like things not to do, you know, and just have that out there, and maybe she can help, you know. She wants to, she really just wants to help. Like she's always been an inspiration. Like anything I've ever done, she's always been 100 and 1,000% behind me, you
Yeah.
know. And I owe, like, as much as I owe my talent and stuff and or inspiration to Rod and and H.P. Lovecraft and Jim Morrison, I owe it, like I owe everything to her.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
nice. I would love to have her on the show, and I'd love to
yeah,
have her talk about, because, as I mentioned, you just said exactly what I was going to say. I said, just like when you mentioned with your music, I said, I think sometimes it may seem dark to you, but you're helping other people who are going through the same thing. Your
yeah,
mother, there's so many people who probably have not exactly the same story as her, but things that have happened to them, and they're going to say, thank you very much. Listening to you talk about and what you're doing now is helping me get over it. So I would love to have her. I think she'd
yeah,
be a great guest. She has a compelling story. And if she's not afraid to talk about it, which I know you told me she's not, yeah, definitely
yeah,
give her my information and I'll have her get in touch.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
you mentioned that while she was held captive, one of the shows that she used to watch on TV was The Twilight Zone, right?
Yes, yeah. And it was funny because I I think you might have heard it because I had said it in the testimony about the can
Yeah,
when
kick the
when
can.
yeah, when me and my wife were smoking a cigarette away from the building, just out of nowhere, a can
Mhm.
rolled out of the bushes straight towards us, and I was just like, at first I was just like, oh, this is a weird can. Then I'm like, oh my god, it's a can. And it's funny because we had left that can there to grab it later, and then I saw a policeman going to he had picked it up and he was going to throw it out in the trash. So I literally I chased him and said, I'm officer, officer. And he's like, he had it like directly over the garbage can. And he's like, yeah. I was like, can I have that can? And I was like, I'm not gonna smoke out of it or anything. As it's like I know it sounds crazy, but that uh, we're at the Twilight Zone convention and there was a kick the can thing, and he was just like, yeah, here. He's like, yeah,
He's like,
have
I don't even
fun.
want to hear the story. Just
Yeah,
take it.
yep. But yeah, yep, yes. So we actually we have that can. We I kept it. We've been bringing it around with us to certain things and just kicking it, just keeping keeping the dream alive. Because I think that's why it was there. And even if it wasn't, it's still like um that's the beauty of that episode, is holding on to that childhood lust for adventure and mysteries and stuff. Like even as dark and as whatever as I and like my mom are, we are very much childlike at heart. We have that childlike sense of wonderment, and we love magic stories and like just really good stories and stuff. But she had I pulled the can out and she was like, oh, I kicked the can. And I was like, yeah. She was like, yeah. That was an episode in particular that she loved, and so I was like, that makes sense, because she just she lights up, like she goes through her periods of depression and stuff, but that's not all the time. And when she's happy and she's with her family and her kids, you would never you you would never think that had happened to her, because it's just so much love and innocence, and like
Yeah.
it's crazy. So like childlike lust for uh bonding and community and family, and and also like games. We played a lot of Monopoly and card games and stuff like that, and she's that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
it is.
kick the can.
Yep. And you know what's funny about that episode in particular? Normally, I do not want anything to do with remakes or reboots, but
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg's version of that story in the movie Twilight Zone, the movie, it's Scatman Crothers. I love his version.
Yes.
I think there's
Yes,
even
that is
bits of
great.
that are actually better than the original episode. I just love the way he did it and how he ended it a little bit differently than the original episode. And it was just,
Yeah.
yeah, he,
Yeah, that was a very I think Rod would have, or or was
Richard
it
Matheson.
Richard Matheson?
I
Yep.
think he wrote
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I I think they would have appreciated that, because that was a good, like that was a good alternate ending.
Yeah.
Like it's still very Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah.
It is still very Twilight Zone, and oh, and the guy in the show at the end is just so heartbreaking. He's just like, take me with you,
Yeah.
take me
In
with
both
you.
episodes. I mean, in the
Yeah,
movie, but I like the fact in the movie, because in the original TV episode, they're all kids and they run off, and you're thinking like, how are they gonna live? What are they gonna do?
yeah, yeah,
That's how they brought that into the movie.
yeah,
Like, I miss being an adult. I
mhm,
miss this. And so they had a
yeah,
chance to be young again, but then they went back to the reality, and then they were able to appreciate their life even more,
mhm,
knowing that they were able to go back. And then that one guy who never had a chance, no, give me a chance. It's just, yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great, powerful episode.
It really is, and they both work, because
Yes.
you know what, like even if like you don't know where they go or whatever, it's like they have their whole lives ahead of them. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like they can make it work, and that's like I love some of the real open-endedness of how the things end. Like sometimes a bow, everything with a bow on top at the end can kind of make it stale. You know,
Mhm.
like 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 H.P. Lovecraft, he used to end a lot of stuff, and it would just be like, oh my God, they're coming, and then it was just, you know, so then you're left to like, did he get away? Did they kill him? If they did kill him, how did they kill him?
Yeah.
And it's like some people want it, which I understand. Like some people want it, like just tell me or whatever. But I it's like you can tell yourself, like go through your mind and like what can you come up with? What would be cool for that? And I've actually started writing some short stories myself.
Oh, really? That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came out with one book. It was called Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. You find it in Amazon, and it's called Five Tales of Blood Curdling Terror, which is not really
Yeah.
it's funny. It's yeah, check it out in Amazon. I actually it came out 3 years ago, and I was able to do it was before COVID. I did all the book signings at Barnes and Noble. I had so much fun doing
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, it went very well. But if you read the stories, there's a lot more humor in it because I mentioned I was a stand-up comedian and I love humor.
Yeah.
But so when I did one book signing at Barnes and Noble, and then I did another one at the Morris Library, which is in Connecticut. And what happened was that one happened during COVID. As COVID started, so I did it through Zoom, and somebody was saying I was doing a reading of it, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was going to be that funny." I said, "Obviously, they don't know who I am," and it was funny.
Yeah.
So it's if you read the book or if I get one to you, I think you can appreciate it. It's just five
Yeah.
tales, and but
No,
my
that's awesome.
I love as I mentioned, I love the twist endings slash downer endings just because it's more
Yes.
realistic. And somebody that best epitomizes that is David Lynch. All his movies end, they're like, what the hell just happened? He always says, he goes, I want you to come up with however you think it should end. You create your own ending for you. I gave you the story. Now you interpret it the way you want to. He does that a lot with his movies.
Now, which movies has he done?
He has done Twin Peaks. He has done Eraserhead. He has done oh my god, there's so many other movies that he's done. Lost Highway is another one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I actually don't think I've seen many of his movies.
Blue Velvet. If you're gonna check out any of his movies, Blue
Yeah.
Velvet with Dennis Hopper is the best one. I mean, his most like mainstream movie is The Elephant Man. He did that one, but for the most part, his movies are
Oh,
very
yeah,
odd,
yep,
very
yep.
weird. Yeah, but check out Blue Velvet with Dennis Hopper. It is weird but very good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, like movies and stories like that are good. Like sometimes it's good to break out of the linear beginning, middle, end, or maybe not even that specifically, but just like the very linear stories where you can just kind of see where it's going.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I've
no,
noticed it a lot, like about shows and stuff I watch today, I can kind of just see where it's going.
yeah. Well, that's why I mentioned before. I said the shows today, I mean, it's the same shows with just a different name. They're so
Yeah.
afraid to try anything new. It's so prepackaged. There's
Yeah.
nothing original
Safe.
about it. And it's funny. When I had Mark DeWidziak on it, because I mentioned how I can't stand reality shows and what TV shows now. And
Hmm.
he said, "You
Hmm.
want to know how reality
Me
shows got
too.
started?" He said there was a TV strike, a writer strike, and what happened was they needed some programming, so they came out with Survivor. And it was only supposed
Mm.
to be a summer hit or a summer show until the union got back together and they made a deal. That made so much money. They're like, "Ha, this is cheap to
Yeah.
make. We can." And then unfortunately, that set off all these horrible shows. So I'm not afraid to say that shows today suck. I love. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, the shows from the even some of the shows in the '90s, as I mentioned, Cheers, Seinfeld. Those were probably
Yeah.
for me the
Hmm.
last great shows. After that, it's just everything is just so stale, so predictable, so homogenized.
Yeah.
One word, boring.
Yes, exactly. It's yep. And that's why I think like the Twilight Zone is it for even as old as it is, it's just refreshing to have a new story
Yeah,
like every episode, you know.
yeah. Well, you mentioned we talked about the different writers. Obviously, I'm guessing that Rod Serling was your favorite writer for that show. Did or did you?
Actually, well, yes, I would definitely, I would say, but one of my favorite episodes, which is up there, definitely top three, is a Richard Matheson one that Rod Serling had bought the script for and changed it up a little bit, but I think it was and when the sky was opened,
Which one was that?
that was the one where which I actually have an autographed card from the
Actually, it's funny
from
you
the
mentioned
actor
it.
Rod
I got
Taylor.
you gave me these, and
Oh yeah, yep.
yeah, and I gotta say, I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about that afterwards because that you right, the one I showed you is the Talkie Tina moving card.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's awesome.
I want to talk about the different memorabilia you have from that, but from The Sky is Falling, I'm sure I've seen every episode over the years. So it's
Yeah.
hard for me to remember. What I did recently was because there's one video store in Connecticut. They have a video, so I don't have the streaming service that shows the Twilight Zone. So I went to the video store, rented. They had it by season, so I had rented season
Yeah.
5. And there's one episode It's so funny. I didn't even realize this. There's an episode where this little girl disappears through the wall, and
Oh yeah.
like, "Mommy, mommy," and
Little
they're
girl
trying to get.
lost.
Yes, and
Yes. Yep.
I kept on
That
saying
is
to
a great
myself,
one.
"That is Poltergeist," and it's funny because
Yeah.
Steven
Yep.
Spielberg, Richard Matheson worked together with
Mhm.
Joel. He loved Richard Matheson, and obviously that was a huge inspiration for. I mean, that
Yeah.
basically was Poltergeist in a half hour.
And coincidentally, I think the actor I don't know his name, but the actor that plays the dad in that episode, the father, he also plays I a main character in the episode and when the sky was open. Here,
Okay,
actually, if it's cool, I'm gonna grab my cards real quick.
no, go right ahead.
Just the autographed ones.
While we're waiting, we are speaking with Rob Bull, Twilight Zone aficionado and musician. We're going to get into that. And here he comes back.
Yeah, so
to the Claus Corner with Rob Bull.
yeah, this is awesome, man. I mean, if you wouldn't mind, I would definitely be down to come back because I have a it seems like we have a lot of stuff that we can talk about.
I've been doing that a lot lately with my interviews where I'm like,
yeah,
you know, Stanley Livingston, he played Chip in My Three Sons. We've done 4 episodes where he's like, Rich, I gotta go. But I said, well, I have more to talk to you about. So you come back for another 2 hours. He's Rich, I gotta go. I said, all right, we'll come back. So I've interviewed him 4 times already. So yeah, I definitely would love to have you back. Yeah.
Yeah, this is it's not the actor, but that is one of the actors from when the sky was opened.
Yeah, I remember that.
Rod
I remember
Taylor.
the name. Yes. He used
And
a lot of the same actors. I mean, you had Jonathan Winters, you had Jack Klugman, you had Peter Falk was in a couple of them. You had a lot of different actors that were in multiple. William Shatner was in multiple episodes.
Yep. And so yeah, so in that episode, it's 3 astronauts or military aircraftsmen that take an experimental aircraft up into space, and I think it was before like we got into space. So I think the idea was exploring like what could happen, like like because we don't know what's up there. So they go up there and they drop off of radar for an hour, and then they crash land back on the planet, but there's no damage to the ship or anything, and they have very minor injuries and stuff, and so they're just kind of like oh, that was pretty crazy. Now let's go get drunk because and so they go to they go start drinking, and the one guy who plays the father from the little girl lost episode starts to feel like weird, like, and he says he's like he feels like if he just lets go he could disappear, and he's getting these weird feelings, so he calls home, and like his parents don't know who he is, and they tell him to stop calling, stop prank calling, and eventually that guy, he just disappears in a phone booth when the Rod Taylor character is at the bar, and and there was like a newspaper on the bar, and it had changed. So it's like three airmen come back from space, and then when he goes back after the guy disappears, he looks at the paper and it says two airmen come back. So he starts going crazy. And I love the episode because he's just running around screaming Harrington, because that was the guy's name. So he's just like, he's calling all these people that knew him for years and stuff, and he's like, Harrington, Ed Harrington, and he's just like going crazy because nobody knows like who he's talking about, and so he's like that it's got to be some kind of joke. It's got to be. So he goes back to the bar, and my favorite scene, probably one of my favorite scenes in all of the Twilight Zone episodes, was it's just him, Rod Taylor. He's standing outside of the bar plate, and it's closed, and then out of nowhere he just smashes through the window and screams at the top of his lungs, Harrington. It's just so hilarious. But and then he starts getting that feeling, he disappears, and finally the last guy disappears, and then the spaceship disappears, and there's no trace of them ever. They just disappeared. And that one's a very open-ended one, because you don't there's there's no explanation of what happened. There's no, not, and that one would hit me. That one was a good scary one, because it's that existential. It reminds me of a lot of like Lovecraft horror, where you don't get answers, you just get the horror of it,
Yeah.
and then everything is gone, and then so you're left. It's like you feel afraid because you don't know what the hell, you don't get any answers.
Yeah.
And
No,
so I love that.
I was trying to think of like some of my favorite episodes, and the ones I can come up with right off the bat are the ones that are obviously the most popular. But when I was watching season 5, I saw episodes that I have not seen in years, and one of the ones about astronauts that I liked was they go up in space and the ship breaks down, and so one of the guys takes off
Oh yeah.
and he finds these little people that live there, and he becomes their
Oh,
king, and he goes, I don't want to leave.
oh,
They love me here. And then at the very end, this big guy comes up and picks him up. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. And then the other guy,
yes.
yeah, that was another.
That
He,
is a great twist.
yeah. And then of course I love the Talkie Tina one with Telly Savalas. That is just one of my all-time
Yeah.
favorites. That was like the original Chucky, or actually
Yeah.
the original trilogy of terror, which Richard Matheson wrote.
This was the
Yes,
other.
I had the Beholder.
Yeah. Yeah. That it's another like hologram type one. It's the only other one we have. Yep. Yeah. So you got the other one. You got the Talkie Tina, and we got the.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for giving me that, because I have that and I have a whole bunch of
Yeah.
other
No.
cards.
Absolutely. I actually gave a couple more cards out to
Oh,
people
yeah.
too. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I was actually going there, and I was like, oh, maybe, because we had some cards that we weren't that crazy about, which might sound like we don't care about the show or whatever, but it was more like I was like, oh, we could sell these and get cards that we like really want. And but actually, like once I had given you one, and this is kind of a crazy story. um so were you there for the auction?
Yes, I was.
um did you take any of the cards that they were
No,
giving out?
no.
So so and it's crazy because they had a check there. We didn't see it, but they had a check that Rod Serling had signed.
Yep, I did see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, one lady got it. And after that, I was like, there was one lady that kept saying like, oh, anybody who bought raffles take cards, and nobody was taking cards, so I took some. And then I lean over and I was like, hey, I was like to my wife, I was like, hey, you should grab some cards too, because it's a big box, and and we collect them. Like we have, I think, like like full collections. I think we might have
Wow.
like 5 or 6 of like full series, which is like actually a guy that was on a Facebook page was like, "Hey, does anybody want these binders? They're full series. There's no autographs or whatever, but they're full series, and whoever wants them will just you can pay shipping," because he was just trying to downsize on his stuff that he had or whatever.
Mhm.
And so we were like, "Yeah, no, yeah, we'll take those." Like I didn't even know they had Twilight Zone cards probably up until last year, which is kind of crazy to think because we have so many now. Well,
Yeah.
and so we did that, and the guy was like, "Okay, where do you want to send it?" And so we gave him our address, and he's like, "This is crazy," because it was like he lived kind of like not too far away from us, and he lives in California now. He's like, "Oh, it kind of feels right because he's sending him back home."
Mhm.
So
That's
that
really
was
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I told Ashley, my wife, to get some, like, just to grab some cards, too. And we were going through and looking at them, and there was one autograph card that that I think I had found, and I didn't, for some reason, I just didn't read it or whatever. Like I just saw that it was like a little kid, so I was like, oh, because it's not like it wasn't somebody I recognized,
Hmm.
so I didn't read the name. And she was like, and I gave it to her, and she was like, she's like, "This is Ron Howard," and I'm
Oh,
like, and I'm like,
was it
I'm
Clint?
like, I'm like, no, I don't think so. No, it was the well, maybe it was the Wilcox boy.
Oh, I have to look at, was it Billy Mooney? I'm
No,
trying to remember. Was,
no, 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 no. Ron Howard was he was in the Walking Distance.
oh, I forgot about that.
So,
Yeah.
which was insane because so we got this at a Rod Serling convention in Binghamton, New York. Like, and it's from the Walking Distance episode, which we went to the park the next day. Like we were going to the park the next day,
Yep.
and it's funny because my mom's last name is Wilcox.
Oh, wow. So
So,
it's all connected. So that's
right?
really cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually it's one of the rarest cards.
Wow. That's cool. Well, I'm glad that you got it because I like to see
We
people that
were
actually
both.
appreciate it and actually are true fans instead of somebody that said, oh, and they'll put it in a box and
Yeah,
completely forget about it. So it's nice to see it somebody that the show means so much to you and your wife that you got something like that. So let me ask you about that because I didn't stay for the next day. So you went to the big carousel exhibit the next day.
yes,
So I saw the
yeah.
documentary on that. They had that.
We stayed up like after we had gotten this card, we were kind of hyped up. So we
Yeah.
we kind of stayed up towards the morning, like the morning hours. So we actually didn't go there with the whole
Oh, okay.
group of people, but we did go there later. I think we had gotten there by like 5, and I think everybody got there at like 10 a.m. But it was still awesome. Like, yeah, like, have you ever been on the carousel? Or
No.
it's awesome. Maybe I send you a video that I took because I was when we were waiting in line to get on it. Like the carousel has like carousels have like artwork and stuff on
Yeah.
top. They can't really see when it's moving. So I took a slow motion video of it, and I'm watching, and there's like most of the artwork is it's stuff from the Twilight Zone episodes, or yeah, like stuff from the Twilight Zone, which I thought was amazing. Like it had like the cannabis, like a scene from the To Serve Man, and Time Enough at Last.
Yeah. Well, did you see the documentary that they showed there? Because it was all about that painting the carousel.
No, no. Oh, you know what? That makes sense. Yeah, no, we actually didn't see that one.
Okay.
We went out for lunch, I think, at that point.
Yeah,
So that makes sense.
yeah, there was a whole thing on it, and there was like a 25 to 30-minute documentary, and they talked about that, and they showed the
Oh,
making of
yeah.
how they did that, and they showed them painting it, which they found out afterwards because somebody asked me, were they filming it while you were? No, those were all recreations of them doing all this. It was like they wanted to get the most iconic.
Yeah.
They wanted to make it where if you see a picture or a painting, you knew exactly what it was, what episode. They wanted to have only iconic scenes and that kind of iconic moments on that carousel. So
Yes.
it's completely
Oh
filled with
yeah,
all that. Yeah.
and they definitely are. I was like, I definitely recognized all of them. I can't remember off the top of my head what they all were, but I
Yeah.
remember watching them. I'm like, oh, that's that. That's that.
Yeah. No, I probably missed it, unfortunately. When I was there, they were going to have a showing of one of the Twilight Zones with an orchestra. I think it was a Twilight, yeah. And they were going to do a live thing. And I think I missed it.
No, they. I had thought that that's what they were doing too, but they didn't. So the
Oh,
Philharmonic,
yeah.
yeah, that was kind of weird because that's the impression that I had gotten too, like that there was going to be violins and stuff. But no, it was just the guy playing piano.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what so I think that guy he was I think he's the either the composer or whatever
Yeah.
so he's the guy that I think is the head of the Philharmonic. So I think there was kind of just like some miscommunication there
Hmm.
because I remember being like I like it was good. I really enjoyed it, but I was definitely like I was like, oh, that's gonna be amazing hearing that with like violins
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that was a little disappointing, but it was still very good. You
Okay.
know.
Yeah. No, all right. So I missed it. Yeah. I was going to go there thinking it was exactly what you said. So now I'm kind of glad because
Oh
for me,
wait. Oh, were you talking at wait were you talking about at the
the carousel, it might have been a different event. I was at the
yes,
table
okay,
for the
yeah.
Philharmonic
Yeah.
Orchestra and they said,
I
oh, you
thought you
got
were
to go.
talking I thought you were talking about the day of the
Oh, no.
like the long day at the Forum Theater.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
No.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, actually I was wearing one of my Rod Serling shirts and there was a guy sitting at one of the benches like an older guy. He seemed like he was like I think he was taking a break from taking a jog or whatever, but he was like, oh, you like Rod Serling? And I was like, yeah. Sat down with him, talked to him for a little bit, and he was saying how every year they do that there, the Philharmonic. I think they do it like twice around the same time. And I think if you go for the rehearsal, it's free. But if you and then if you go for the actual showing, then it's then you got to pay or whatever. But he was basically saying like if you wanted to, there was a way to see it free.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, no, the one I wanted to go to, which is probably what you're talking about now, was $25. So
Mhm.
that, and they said it was the full orchestra, but I think I missed it. I
Yeah,
put it in my
yeah, I'd missed it
emails,
too.
and I just unfortunately, but I love going to things like that, especially this time of the year. They show in Connecticut anyway. They have different movie theaters. They have the orchestra with either the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, or they have Phantom of the Opera. They're showing,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, I
That's pretty
love going to
cool.
things like, yeah, it is really cool. And I did another one, which wasn't a horror movie, but it was a Charlie Chaplin movie, and it was a no Buster Keaton movie, which
Ah,
is a perfect segue to that Twilight Zone episode that he was in. He was in a great episode. I don't know if you saw that. Well, I'm sure you saw it. It was the one where he finds a time machine and he goes back into the 50s and
oh
he hates
yeah.
life. And then
Yep.
the guy from the 50s goes, I want to go back to your time. And then he was so bored because it wasn't like he thought it was going to be. And Buster Keaton was like, I love being back home,
Right.
because he was
Yeah.
so confused by all
That's the
the
one that
technology.
starts out like a silent movie, right?
Yes. Yep. That's the one.
With like the honky tonk piano and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was done
That was
as
a
a,
great one.
yeah.
That was a really good artistic choice there. I really
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Buster Keaton. So I'm not a huge aficionado of him, but the movies I've seen, so the guy was just brilliant. So, and I love the fact that he had such a great sense of humor that he was on that show, and they made it. I have a feeling it was Matheson that wrote that episode too. Could be wrong, but I think it was Matheson.
Yeah, that could seem like a Matheson type episode.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was reading that Mark Scott's Decree book, The Twilight Zone Companion, and they were talking about the differences in writing. And they said Matheson and Charles Beaumont definitely had the darker side, while certainly had more of the emotional human connection side
Yes.
stories.
Like Night of the Meek. That's
Yes.
definitely one.
Yeah.
That I think that was one of the first ones that I saw that I was like, wow, like it unlocked like some kind of I don't know, just like connection to the show. And I was like, oh, this is so much more than what a lot of people think it is, like the show, you know?
Yeah.
Like me and my buddy actually now we're writing well, he wrote an instrumental and I'm writing some lyrics for a Christmas song, and I'm kind of loosely basing it on the Night of the Meek.
All right, I love that. All right, let's talk about your band, because is it just you writing music, or do you have a full band?
Um, I have a couple guys that I work with. Like I'm not necessarily like I just kind of go by my name because I feel um like for like the solo stuff I do, I feel like I don't really need a different kind of stage name or whatever, because with my dark and satanic imagery, like the name Bull already puts the the horns there, so I can it's very easy to use that. But I've been in a couple bands. One was Hermetica. That was like the first band I was in. We did a lot of covers, like old blues and rock, like Led Zeppelin and
Mhm.
um, House of the Rising Sun and that kind of stuff. But we
Love it.
wrote our own stuff too. So what I've been doing now is my buddies just kind of come over and um, we just like they make the instrumentals and I write. I go into my trance or whatever. Not really. I don't go into the trance, but I just try to pull from certain imagery and stuff that calls to me, like a lot of old, um, ancient stuff, whether it's Egyptian or Catholic imagery and stuff like that. Maybe not necessarily all the good uh, imagery from Catholicism, but actually, there's one great episode of Twilight Zone that does have an angel in it, so it can kind of seem like very maybe not very Christian or Catholic or whatever, but which I relate to a lot. It's called Passage for a Trumpet, I think it was.
Oh, is that Jack Klugman?
Yes,
Yep,
yep.
I
I
know which one you're talking about.
love
That's a great
I
episode.
I I relate so much to that episode where it's like people like when you do art and stuff, it's like I don't make really any money from what I do. Like I've made money and stuff, but I'm basically just trying to get up um like a library of stuff and like getting all of my because my lyrics and stuff now they're very I don't know like it very like better than they've ever been. I'm really good with wordsmithing now and telling the stories that I want to tell. So it's more or less getting the instrument stuff down because I haven't really played music in a while. So I'm very rusty with that, with like creating. Like I have um like written a lot of in, uh, instrumental songs, but as of lately, it's just been really hard to do that kind of stuff. My writing's been incredible. It's like a curse. My writing's incredible, but it's like I can't make and I can't make an instrumental to match the writing now.
But to me, I think it's more impressive. It's probably better for you, and I'm going to explain why. That you're better with lyrics than music right now, because lyrics, I think for me, I think would be more difficult to write, and it's going to help you with your writing if you're writing short stories or novels, novellas, whatever you're writing.
Yeah.
I think so. The two will go hand in hand. So I think it's if you're going to have a curse where you can only do one thing, I'd rather have writer's block on the music side, personally, and then with the lyrics, just have them pour right out of you.
Right. Did you get a chance to listen to those
I
songs
loved
that
it.
I sang?
Yes,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Awesome.
No,
That's
great
cool.
songs. And you showed me, I'm trying to remember, because you showed me a song when I met you in New York, in Binghamton. Was that
Yeah.
one of the songs, or was that a different song? Because that was the one that was about the Twilight Zone, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That one was it's called Queen of the Twilight Zone. That was
That's
one
it.
of my first one of my first like story songs that I guess it would be concept songs, because like then I was really loving the Twilight Zone. I was absorbing like the essence of it, not like
Yeah.
absorbing so I can recreate it, but just like absorbing the messages and and the like the storytelling within that. So I had came up with something that was, I guess it was kind of similar to uh, Perchance to Dream, but for me it was a little different, which I think Rod did and other artists did. Like I usually like if I'm writing a song that's about somebody or whatever, I'm usually that, the character, because and I feel like that's what really, pushes you. Like if you can make a character that's not you, but it's also like you can kind of, it is coming from you, like it's obviously
Yeah.
it's not you because you're writing about somebody else, but aspects of you inside that, then you can you kind of give people, it sucks people in a way where it's convincing,
Yeah.
like if so that's been my kind of like storytelling is I've really just been trying to like suck people in and like kind of mess with their minds, but not necessarily in a bad way, like kind of making them think, in a way where I feel like a decent amount of music today doesn't do,
Yeah. I agree with
you
that
know?
too. Music, just like TV, is not the same as it was. And I'm not one of those people, hey, get off my lawn, youngsters.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm not one of those old guys that are screaming, yelling, saying, oh, back
yeah,
in my day. But
yeah.
like for me,
I
I
can
go
get
back.
down with it, but
Yeah, there's some that's good, but for the most part, and for me, I go back to even before my youth. I was born in 68, but I love the music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s.
yeah,
When to me, and it might not be
I go
popular.
back to 40s.
Oh yeah, no, I like
Uh,
like you mentioned Dean Martin. I love Dean
yeah,
Martin. I love the whole Rat
Billie
Pack years.
Holiday.
Yeah, definitely. Billie Holiday. There was a great movie on her recently that I saw. So I love
Cole
all that stuff.
Porter.
What was that? Oh,
Cole
Cole Porter.
Porter.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, which I
definitely.
think he's from like the 40s.
Yep.
Yeah, like I just love. I don't know. Like I feel like a soul out of time.
Yeah,
But also not in like a. I think I can use that to kind of give people other perspectives and stuff like that, and use that being out of time, combining it with modern technology and ideas to make it somewhat timeless.
yeah, exactly. And I think that music is timeless. That's why people still listen to it. A lot of the music today, just like we mentioned with TV shows, they're prepackaged. They're
Yeah,
like even I mean, all they do now are get
bubblegum
four.
rapper, just
Yeah, well, they get four guys or four young kids that look alike, sound alike, talk alike, dance alike, and
mhm.
then they get old. All right, let's get four new kids. They
Yeah,
look alike, sound alike, talk alike, dance alike. It's you
yeah,
never have a band like the Beatles or Rolling Stone. That's more
or the
Beatles.
Doors,
The
like
Doors, yeah. But I mean, the Beatles, the way they progressed over the
Tiny
years.
Tim.
Yes, I met him before. This guy is
Really?
great. Yeah, I have a
That's
pic.
awesome.
I will send you the
That's
picture.
incredible.
There's
Yeah, please do. That's
Massachusetts.
awesome.
The guy was hilarious, and he was at a place called Spooky World.
He was incredible.
Yeah, tiptoe through the
Through the
tube.
tulips, yep.
So it was funny. Like my
Earth
friends and I were like,
angel.
tiptoe, tiny tiptoe. And he was like, all right, I'll play for these guys right here. And it's funny because you know what I love about him.
SpongeBob. SpongeBob
Yes,
blew him up.
yeah, exactly. And I had a chance
Living
to
in the
talk to him.
sunlight, da 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 dun, dun, having a wonderful time.
I had a chance to talk to him, and this guy is not. He's not a character. He is exactly what you see.
Yeah,
There's nothing. I mean, if you go back to the days when he got married on the Johnny Carson show and all of that, I mean, there's nothing fake about this guy. He is exactly who he is. He's not. It's not like he gets off
I
stage and
love.
he goes,
Yeah,
"Hi, Rich, how you doing?" But he was so.
I
so
love people like that.
yep.
That's where like I differ because I'm like when I get up on stage and stuff, I'm a very different person than I am actually. Like I'm a very like quiet, reserved person.
Yep.
I kind of see myself as almost like a. I wrote it in next to something I've been writing that it's like a sentinel, like a faceless entity that just kind of watches, observes, and reports back.
Yeah.
You know, I and it's like I mean I'm not necessarily antisocial. I love human interactions and stuff like that, but I'm definitely like it's like there's been shows and stuff that I've done where the people just like they don't know what's about to happen because I just kind of I sit in the back and I don't really say much and I look nervous because I'm terrified. But then once I get up on stage, it's like you know, and it's like I wouldn't be tooting my own horn if like I like didn't feel it. You know what I mean? Like maybe not necessarily feel it, but like the response that I've gotten back from people, it's like insane. You know, I go up and I do my thing and I just kind of I enter like this fugue state. Usually it's a madness where I'm just screaming and I'm pacing back and forth. I'm screaming in a way where I'm not like doing death metal screaming. It's just like visceral human screaming and like with to a key and stuff usually, but sometimes I will just do it and then I just kind of it's up and down where it's like you can't really expect when I'm going to start going, going to that crazy place and then just kind of going back down and just start crooning and then like taking them through a journey and which is funny because for me it's when I'm up there it's actually it's mostly anxiety. That's why I'm doing it because it makes me feel comfortable if I can just kind of like break out of myself and just kind of let like controlled madness take over, like I don't like cut myself, break stuff over my head or whatever, but I just that's the theatrics, like like what I was talking about, like Jim Morrison, just kind of taking people through that. And like I've gotten off stage and places and stuff, and like older people that you know, like I they come up to me and I see it in their eyes, and it's jarring because I don't know what to say when they're just like, uh, "That was incredible." It was like seeing like something akin to like Jim Morrison or greatness or something, and I just and that sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but it's kind of uncomfortable because it's like I wish I knew how to harness that and be that all the time, you know.
Well, it's funny. I think people like I told you I was in bands, and
Mm-hmm.
and people say, "Oh, you're arrogant." I said, "No, there's a difference. I'm confident. So there's a difference between
Yes.
confidence and arrogance." But similar to you, like I've always felt comfortable on stage, like doing
Yeah.
bands, comedy, stand motivational speaking, book tours, whatever I was doing. I love a big crowd. So for
Really.
me,
Yeah.
it was like
I'm
more of a
terrified.
yeah, it was more of a fun thing where like
Hmm.
so we had a song called Mental Hospital. My friends made me a straight jacket. I came running out. Like, nobody knew it. The music started. Even the band goes, "Where the hell is Rich? Where the hell is Rich?" Come running out as soon as the music starts, jump off stage with a straight jacket, start moshing around. And there's
That's
an article in
awesome.
this magazine that said
That's awesome.
I was literally knocked off my feet from their performance because I knocked her down. I didn't realize it. And so another one we had was just fun. We had the song called "Death to Dino." I had this Dino on the news. It was just and
That's awesome.
people
That's
used
all
to
theatrics, man.
yeah.
That's
And
what
another
people
one,
want.
yeah, well, another one. It's funny.
Shakespearean.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm going to tell you a story that best proves that because there was a band later I joined, and they had a song called "Ritual of the Walking Dead." I said, "Come on, this is I let's take ourselves a little bit more not so seriously." So
Yeah.
I bought this 6 foot tall inflatable Gumby, and I changed the name of the song "Ritual of the Walking Gumby." And the band at first was pissed off. Oh my god, they're going to be a joke. People, that was in 1989. People still come up to me and say, "Oh, the Gumby guy." I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
So people remember that. And they used to come up to me like, Rich, the only reason I come to your shows is I want to see what you're going to do. I said, good, because I have no idea what I'm going to do. One time I did a stage dive. I got lifted up. I kicked out the light. They had to hire the lights. And they said, we never saw anybody get that high.
That's
I
awesome,
loved it. I
man.
used to have
Man,
so
you
much fun.
sound crazier than me.
Oh, yeah. I
Jesus.
used to have a lot of fun
I
doing
gotta
that.
step my game up. I gotta harness some Rich Sear from the 80s.
And everybody used to always say, like, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just wind you. It was like, do you ever stop? I said, no. I just have
That's
so much
awesome, man.
fun. And but I'm bringing
Yeah.
that up only to say that I had the same reactions and people still mention that to me. Oh, like on Facebook, somebody will say, hey, I remember seeing you in the 80s with the Dino. I said, what? Yep.
I would love to like I don't know what we could do, but I would love to work with you sometime
Let's do it.
whether some writing or uh, shows or whatever, you know. And I'm not in really anything for money right now. You know, I honestly I would be happy to die the way that H.P. Lovecraft did, thinking that he was nothing and he was going to be forgotten. But then after he passes, his stuff blows up and is so impactful.
Well,
You
that's the
know,
sad thing
years.
about so many
That's the
artists.
tragedy. Yeah, that's always a tragedy. And I think now I've realized that, and I'm like, I'm kind of comforted in that, where it's like I know I don't get much. I don't really push my stuff that much. Like this is the most I've pushed or like talked about publicly in my music in a long time because I don't like being. I don't know. It's weird. I like being mysterious, but I think that also comes from my just. It makes me uncomfortable talking a lot about um, like stuff I do and create. I mean, not really in this conversation so much, but like talking to other people that are just like, oh, you do music? Oh, that's cool. You know, where
Yeah.
it's, you know, like I've gotten, I've had family members and stuff like that that just kind of blow it over and like kind of just like disrespect
Yeah.
me in a way, and not only just family members, but the people from the past too, which helps. I I have some of that fuck that my mom has, so
Yeah.
I thrive being an underdog, and but I think just being like degraded and lot as like a kid, and then stuff like that. I don't really push myself that much, but
Yeah.
I
No,
I,
I
I
think you should. Because
yeah
people always, it's funny because people always say, Rich, can you teach me how to promote? Because I don't like talk. I said, you have to make people think, especially I did this during comedy the most. I said, you have to make them think that if you miss this show, you're going to miss the
yeah
event of a lifetime because you have to let people. So I love promoting myself. And I said, that is a completely different animal. That's a completely different thing than
yeah.
the whole
That's a
performing.
full-time job.
It is. And I'd spent when I would get something ready, and then after I would just spend the next, I don't know how many weeks or months, just like even with this show. As soon as this comes out, you're gonna see it all. Well, you're not on, I don't know if you're on Facebook. Yeah, you are on Facebook. So you'll see it all over the place, and you'll see it in all these different groups. I'll put it in metal groups, I'll put it in Twilight Zone groups.
Yeah,
I'm
yep.
gonna put this everywhere. And so I love the promotion aspect of it, but there's so many people I know that are
Yeah,
more like
yeah,
you and say,
that's
Rich,
what
you have to
makes me
help me with that.
uncomfortable. That's what makes me uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
promoting myself because then, I don't know. It makes me like even though I believe as much as I do and like the products that I put out there, it feels like I'm being phony or something. If maybe that's like the curse or something where it's like you don't like I don't want to oversell it, so it's like I end up not selling it at all.
No, I think you should oversell it every time.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion because let people say, and finally they're going to be, what the hell is this? I got to check this out. Who is this guy?
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
give
I
you an
don't.
example. Do you know Evil Knievel? I'm sure you heard of him.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah,
All right. So this is a perfect example. Evil Knievel, when he was first starting out with Caesar's Palace, he would call up every day and say, is Evil Knievel gonna be there? And you're like, no, I never heard of him. So the next day he called, it's like Evil Knievel, who's that? And finally the third or fourth time it's like, Evil, can I, who is this evil guy? So finally, so we gotta hire him. I don't know who he is. And it was him calling.
that's
He kept
hilarious.
getting his name wrong every time to make it seem like it was just this guy asking about evil. And
That's
so
hilarious.
yeah,
That's genius.
it is. And
Yeah,
but he's just like, he's another one. Back in the 70s, he was the master of promotion of everything. I mean, this is what gets me mad about him. When people say, oh yeah, all these other kids on BMX bikes are breaking his records. I said, this guy, these bikes are made for that, what they do now. When he was doing it, he had a couple 100-pound bike that was not made
yeah.
for
He was
jumping
the
over
first.
12 buses. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the first. He was like he's like the Elvis of stunts of
Exactly.
that kind of stuff. Like he had like he paved the way for the people that are doing it now. Like
Including his son,
yep,
Robbie Knievel. And people were saying, oh, Robbie beat every record Evil. I said, still, Robbie has the way they're making things now, it's not easy, but it's easier for them to
Oh
do
yeah,
what they were doing.
yeah.
And so
They got
even
more
Alyssa Pioneer,
horsepower,
yes,
better suspension, all that kind of stuff, better like safety equipment and stuff. Like on a motorcycle,
yeah,
you're not really. No, I don't really know how you make that much safer, but it was just like he was just testing it. Like it was something that's really not wasn't done then. So he's like, I'm gonna.
yep,
What the hell?
yep. But he would, because he would start off at these because I love watching documentaries on people that interest me, and I saw like several on evil, and he would do what, and the reason I'm bringing him up was because when he first started out, he would go to these little rodeos and different things like that, and he
Yeah,
would have to promote the hell out of himself. So I believe, and I will help you promote. I definitely want to work with you. We're going to be talking more off the air. I want to work with you, help you with whatever collaboration we could do.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you and I have, just talking to you at the Twilight Zone Sterling Fest, I could see we had a lot in common. Now talking to you for 2 hours, we definitely have a lot
yeah,
in common
definitely,
with
yeah.
movies,
It,
music, books. So I
yeah,
definitely see a collaboration, a
yeah.
Sarah Bull production, or Bull Sarah, whatever you want to.
I'm
You
down.
get
I'm
top billing,
down.
I don't care. Um,
100%.
well, you know what? Let's talk about your books. You said you did some writing. Do you have anything published yet?
I don't have anything published, but they're more of just kind of like personal
Okay.
um stories that I've written because it's like story like that kind of writing I'm definitely not that as confident about as I am with lyrical writing and performing on that stuff. Mainly it's mainly just because of punctuation and grammar and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I didn't pay attention that much when I should have in English class and those aspects. But my wife has been helping me out
Oh, good.
with that kind of stuff. I'll write something and then she proofreads it. And I'm actually I wanted to tell you about I'm writing a script for a YouTube video that I'm came up with a good idea for. I actually made a whole new YouTube channel inspired by the one video. I was like, oh, I need to make another one so I can. Um, I want to do things like I want to review and like talk about uh, Twilight Zone episodes and kind of turn that into a series and other things like that. And but also just kind of make other like um, maybe 15 minute videos on like things that are just intrigue me or whatever. Like there's one, this is the one I'm writing a script about an MK Ultra um, uh, operative. I think it would be like a guy he worked with MK Ultra, but he was in like um, he worked in like probation officers and he was with probation officers and he was teaching in colleges and stuff, but he was also doing experiments with LSD and some very strange things happen around those experiments, and especially the things that his goals in experimenting with LSD. He was trying to induce short but intense psychotic breaks through drugs and hypnosis, and some of the people that he ended up like working with, like one guy that was stationed. He was a military guy. He was stationed at a um, I forgot what they call it, but like a fort or whatever, like where this guy was working, and he ended up blacking out somehow, going out and assaulting and sexually assaulting and murdering a little girl, and he had no memory of it,
Uh,
and he had these terrible headaches after um, oh, that's what he had these terrible headaches. So and this doctor, this CIA MK Ultra operative, told him that he could help him with those headaches through these experiments that he has, and out of the blue, this guy goes and does something like that. He said that he was hallucinating and that the little girl was a little girl that had assaulted him sexually as a kid, so he was getting revenge, and that God told him to do it. And it was like very crazy, and like he wasn't like this before or necessarily after. And I think he got the death sentence or whatever. And like that guy kind of the operative, his name is Jolly and West. Like probably nobody really knew about him or knew what he was doing because he kept it very secretive because he was, involved with the CIA when they were doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So my video is about um like how similar his life and career was to Scarecrow from the Batman
Yeah.
um, series, and
Hmm.
how it's basically like it's a. I'm not saying that Scarecrow was based on this guy or whatever, because I'm pretty sure Scarecrow was a character before this guy, but it was just more like uh, a thing on like life imitating art, art imitating life, just the eerie similarities.
Yeah.
Like there's one thing. Have you seen any of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies?
I love it. Those are my favorite Batman movies. My
Yeah,
all-time favorite is the one with Heath Ledger, The Dark Knight.
yeah, yeah.
And you know what's funny about that? Because I was a huge fan of Christopher Nolan before when he came out with Memento, and also another movie before that was called The Following. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's where this guy he just starts following this guy that was going. He'd love to follow people. That's how the movie started. He started following this guy that was breaking into houses, and the guy says, "Instead of following me, why don't you help me?" And then it just goes from there.
Oh yeah, no, I actually don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that was his. It might have
That
been
one
his
sounds
first movie.
interesting though.
It is. Yeah, and then of course I love Inception. So anything Chris Nolan
Yeah.
does for the most part. But yeah, to me, I love the Chris Nolan ones. The Tim Burton ones were more like the TV series where they were
Yeah,
more
the cartoonish.
cartoonish. Yeah, and Michael
And
Keaton's a
then
good Batman, but
yeah,
to me, um
yeah, Christopher Nolan,
Christian Bale
he
is the best.
solid. Yeah.
Yeah,
He yeah, like I feel like that would like even still is like for me the definitive
yeah,
Batman movies. Yeah, so in the first movie, Batman Begins, there's a scarecrow. The
yep.
scarecrow's in that one. And you remember the scene where Batman takes down Falcone
Hmm.
and Scarecrow goes to visit him in the at the jail
Yeah,
or psych ward or whatever, and like um Falcone's like, yeah, I'm crazy. I don't know what I'm gonna do. He's like kind of being facetious about it, and then um, and then Falcone starts talking like, well, if you don't help me out of this, I'm gonna give up, the head guy. And then he puts on his mask and he sprays him, and then he actually has a psychotic break. Uh, Falcone, like when the Scarecrow's talking to him.
yeah.
You remember that
No,
scene?
I do remember the scene. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but I do
Yeah,
remember that scene. Not,
yeah, that was a very good scene because he's
yeah,
like, he takes out the mask and he's like, oh, you want to see my mask? And he's like, oh, he's like, and I think Falcone says something like, we got a fruit run in the nut house or something like that.
yeah,
And he's like, yeah, he's like, this probably wouldn't scare a guy like you, but it makes it drives all these uh, people crazy. And then he puts it on, and then he sprays this stuff, and then Falcone, he has the nightmare. Um, yeah, I think that was a fear toxin, so it makes you see like your worst fears
yeah,
and stuff. And so, like the similarity is that actually, this guy Jolly and West went to go see Jack Ruby, who shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
hmm,
He was one of the psychiatrists that went to go see him to make sure that he was good to be, um, you know, stand up for trial. And every, I th- he had gotten interviewed by multiple psychiatrists and stuff. And this guy, Jolly West, was a psychiatrist, and he was found sane, capable. He wasn't irrational or whatever. But then this guy Jolly and West spends 2 hours with him, and he's completely insane after. And there's no videos, there was no documentation of what happened in that room
hmm,
or whatever. But I had heard that, and then it reminded me of that scene from Batman where I was like, huh. I was like, this guy, he basically like his goal in his career was to create short, like very mind-shattering psychotic breaks in a short amount of time. Like he was actually documented of killing an elephant with LSD, like a crazy amount of LSD at a fair in front of a bunch of like people, like just regular people going to a fair, and everybody was like laughing. It was a different time, I guess. But this
Yeah.
guy was like, I was like, this guy is Scarecrow. So
Wow.
I was like, oh, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna write. I was like, this would be a good video. That I checked YouTube and stuff to see if like I'm like, has anybody made this video? I'm not like I said, I'm not saying that he is the inspiration or whatever, but it is very very odd, especially like those two things, like the scene from the Batman movie, and then everything I found out about this guy who researched Jolly and West for and actually a Charles Manson book. There's a big correlation between MK Ultra and Charles Manson. I know it seems crazy, very conspiratorial, but this guy has like documents and anything he can't prove, he doesn't try to prove. He's like, I this is just I can't prove that this happened. I'm not gonna conjecture about it and stuff. But there's just a lot of stuff that is just odd.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never even heard that story before. That's really intrigues me. I
Yeah.
would, you know what? Now I think it's a great time to promote yourself. Where can people find your YouTube channel?
Um. They can find. You can look me up. It's Rob Bull. That is my YouTube channel where I have a couple songs and videos from old shows. Um, I I'm planning to get that video up hopefully around maybe realistically to take my time with it, maybe around Christmas. So that will be on the channel Shadow of the Bull if people want to subscribe ahead of time. I might try to put other stuff on there just for in the meantime. I have a lot of it, like it's about 85% written. So it's putting together all the video stuff and whatever. I have a good portion of that stuff put together too, but I just want to give myself enough time to
Oh
make
yeah,
it really, really good quality. I want to make music for it and stuff too, atmospheric music. But also I have, you could find me on SoundCloud, Rob Bull, Bull, like the animal. Um, and um, I also have an album on Spotify. It's not, it's, um, I had a manager and stuff, so, and he didn't have the same vision that I did for myself or whatever. So it's not my proudest, the songs are all great, but it's just the album artwork that I'm not crazy about. Um, so that's not a big thing, but you can find me on Spotify, Rob Bull.
okay. So I definitely see some big things happening for you, and I'm so glad I had a chance to meet you at the Sterling Fest, and I look forward to collaborating with you somehow. I know
Yeah.
one way I'd like to collaborate with you right now, because you were mentioning doing YouTube shows on Twilight Zone episodes or other things. I would love to. If you ever
Yeah.
need a guest,
Absolutely. That would be great.
you and I can just
Yeah.
we've been going back and forth for 2.5 hours now, and
Yeah.
I'm
I
just I'm
mean,
just warming up.
that would be great. Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we could like watch an episode beforehand and come
Yes,
on and talk about it. And I would also like to help you. I remember you were talking about trying to get your stuff on Spotify and
yes,
and stuff like that. So I was talking to a couple buddies of mine that do their own distribution stuff, and it's you know I think you had told me where it's like people say it's very easy, but it's like it's the doing it part. So
exactly. It's so
yeah,
easy
I
for
would
somebody
definitely
to
love.
say, no, don't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it's people go, oh, just go on anchor.com, do this, do that. I said, it's
Yeah,
easy for you because you know what you're doing. But for me, if you
yeah,
show me a couple times, and then I'll get it. So yeah, I appreciate
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Appreciate you looking into that.
and I would definitely I would definitely be down to help you do that. I didn't really look into it much because just the kind of person that I am, I wasn't really sure if this was gonna happen,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but I'm so happy it did. I really appreciate it, you know. Um, yeah, so thank you very much, and I definitely want to do those things. Actually, doing that with you is going to be really great because that'll actually give me the kick in the ass that I need to do it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No,
or,
definitely. I will
or,
be there.
for the for the Twilight Zone, but also for for helping you out with that too. Yeah,
Oh yeah, no,
that's
definitely.
awesome.
You know what, the feeling is mutual. I met you like a month and a half, 2 months ago, and
Yeah,
I said when just talking to you for about 15 minutes, I said, got to have you on the show.
yeah,
You make it
yeah,
interesting, and that's not even knowing half the things that you had, like all the stories. Like so, you,
yeah.
it's the connection you have with the Twilight Zone made this interview so much more meaningful, I think, to
Yeah,
my viewers that are watching this, and it's just and I can't wait until this airs, and I'm going to air it all over the Twilight. I'm on 5 different Twilight Zone groups, and I know they're going to
that's
love this.
awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. And like it feels like I've known you for a lot longer than I have. Like I was nervous about this quite a bit at first. I even so much that I actually I like put a picture of H.P. Lovecraft over my picture on the Zoom meeting thing because I didn't want to see myself and be like, oh, I look dumb. So I
No,
was like
not at
looking
all.
at him, be like, what would Lovecraft do? Um, but yeah, man, you're an awesome guy, and
Thank you.
I like you're really great at what you do. You're really easy to talk to, and and like you have just stuff ready, you know.
I
I
appreciate that.
really like that. Yeah, but I was worried there was just going to be like a part where it would just be like 15 minutes of silence, and then you know, it
Yeah.
hasn't
No,
been like that. So
no, not at all. There's a lot of times it's funny because I sometimes I think I have we the guests and I have too many things to talk about. An example would be, did you ever hear of a group called the Bad Brains? It's a punk group from the 80s.
yes, yep,
Well, not the first singer, but the second singer. I interviewed him starting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't end until 10 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, I said, I have to go. I said, he goes,
yeah,
you have to. So we had an interview for 5 hours, and he was still, the last thing he said as I was hitting pause, this was awesome. It was perfect way to end the episode. But it's just, I love the fact, you know what, I tell people this all the time. What I love most about the show is that I get to meet so many interesting and great people, and I get a chance to have them on the show. They get to talk about themselves, and I learned so many new things. And you're just the latest example of that. So thank you very much for being on the show. And I'm going to
yeah,
have you back. We're going to work together, and I would love to have your mother as a guest.
awesome, yep. And if you ever need eerie music made for anything, I'm your man.
All right. Well, that
I
was
am.
Rob Bull, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have
That
a good
wraps up
one.
the late. Oh, you too. That wraps up the latest episode of the Claus Corner. I want to thank musician, author, and future YouTuber Rob Bull for coming on the show. I also need to thank John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for always doing a superb job editing this program and making it available to all each and every week. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
From the frenetic mind of author Rich Sear. 5 terrifying short stories, now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All of a sudden I hear, brim, brim.
What's a diaphragm again?
we caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Around for all